So good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our series of 10 Minutes With. This is a series of interviews with leaders from the wireless, mobile, and digital infrastructure industries. And today we're joined by Steve Libbey from Parallel Wireless, and he and I are going to chat for literally 10 minutes. I have some prepared questions for him, but knowing Steve, this is going to be pretty freeform. So Steve, first question for you is quite simple. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you, Ian. Steve Libbey, Vice President of Sales at Parallel Wireless, where I own responsible for sales and go-to-market strategy for US and Canada, North America.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. And what does Parallel Wireless do? Where are you based? And really, what's the value you provide? Who are the customers, etc.?
Thank you. Yeah, we're headquartered in Nashua, New Hampshire, so we're a U.S. company an hour north of Boston. And we're pioneers and strong proponents of the OpenRAN initiative, where we're trying to open up the radio access network by commoditizing the hardware and providing all the value add from via software and a software-defined network, and all the network functions virtualized or on a bare metal servers.
Okay, so your customers are the mobile operators. Where do you fit in the food chain?
Correct. So we're trying to make 4G and then 5G as easy and inexpensive to deploy as enterprise Wi-Fi is today. And that's why we're working with global hardware manufacturers to provide a commoditized hardware solution and having our software control it and supporting all the OpenRAN initiatives going on globally.
Okay, great. So you're VP of sales then, so your day is spent, I assume, with the mobile operators in the US, or do you have channel partners as well? What's your go-to-market?
Our go-to-market is direct, so we do engage directly with mobile network operators in the US and Canada, and we have a lot of trials and activities and POCs going on currently.
Okay, good. All right. So the US is a little bit of a unique region for mobile, wireless and mobile. We're a very big country, right? North America, certainly. If you take Alaska as alone, it's huge. You take Canada, it's huge. And the US, obviously, is big as well. We've got a lot of big open spaces, but we've got a large population. But our population tends to be concentrated in New York, Dallas, Los Angeles, metro areas, Chicago, etc. So you end up with millions of people surrounded by, let's take Dallas-Fort Worth, I think there's 6 million people surrounded by Texas, which is, there's a lot of nothing out there. So from an operator point of view, that brings a challenge of how do you provide capacity and density at the same time you have to provide coverage. So how do you, as a vendor, how do you fit into that metric? How do you address that problem with the operators?
Great question, Ian. So it's really an issue of scalability. So Parallel Wireless is unique in that we can scale downwards to support very rural, remote areas economically. For example, we have an announced deployment in the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. You mentioned Alaska. That's the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So as you said, the U.S. is a big place. I spend a lot of time on planes. But we've also got deployments in the upper Midwest and Wisconsin near urban areas. So the issue is really how you can scale downwards economically. That's as much an issue as how you scale upwards with high density solutions. And we can do both.
Okay, so by scaling down, you mean go out to cover a solution, let's say for West Texas, do that economically when you've got a smaller population, bigger area, but then scaling up for density of downtown Dallas, for example.
Exactly right. So Parallel Wireless can scale downwards to support just a few dozen subscribers in a given sector or service area. And that's really important because if you look at, there's probably 60% of the US is lightly populated. As you said, we're concentrated mainly in large urban areas, but in between those areas, there's a lot of folks who have just as big needs for broadband access as folks in the city.
Right, okay. So our networks have been around for some time. I think 35, pushing 40 years now for cellular deployments. There's a lot of stuff on those towers. So as a vendor in this market that frankly is dominated by, you know, two or three established vendors, how do you come into the market? How do you implement within that market, within that RAN?
Sure, great question. So parallel wireless can seamlessly integrate into an existing RAN solution. So no need for any forklift upgrades. You can take our OpenRAN controller or HetNet gateway and integrate it to an existing EPC and interoperate our RAN solution next to, adjacent to an existing solution. And that could be for use cases like multi-densification, cost-effective RAN extension, or a densification project.
Okay, so I could have an existing RAN. Let's say I live in West Austin here. I could have an existing RAN. You could bolt on within this RAN to provide additional capacity, or adjacent to it to provide additional coverage. Is that fair?
That's exactly right, Ian. So you could bring us in and introduce us into your RAN. Then you've got some RAN competition. So you start enjoying better pricing for both CapEx and OpEx, and seamlessly integrate us in and use us in a part of your network. Networks are really, Ian, they're like living, breathing things. You're not going to get a rip and replace situation, or a Greenfield replacements are very rare. Or Greenfield deployments, I don't think there's been one in decades. So you'll have to work with an existing network, and OpenRAN will happen over time.
Right, right. Yeah, I hear a lot from vendors. They talk about the Greenfield opportunity, but when you look, you look at there's places like Japan, India, China. They've had the luxury of being able to say, okay, I want to go build a whole new Greenfield LTE operator, for example, from scratch. And we just don't get that here, right?
We did one. We actually did one. Yeah, Optimera up in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. That was a Greenfield deployment. We fired up an LTE network 4G in 4 days. Okay. So that was a lot of fun. But that is not that. Admittedly, that is a pretty rare event. I think that's the first Greenfield deployment in 20 years.
Good. Okay. A couple of last questions here. So I'm one of the big operators or regional operators. I come to you, say, Steve, what can you do to help? Tell me how this roadmap is going to look for me. What are we going to do first? What are we going to do next? Take me down the path here of what you're going to do for me.
Got it. Great question. So I think the important thing is to start. We can come in and you can try us very easily, seamlessly integrate within hours. We can plug into your EPC and you can use us as a additional tool in your toolbox, if you will, that parallel wireless can provide an alternative RAN vendor solution for you to try. And again, depends on the use case. You may want to use us for like a parkway or a stadium. It really, I think the important thing is to try and evaluate and plan for the future when we're going to have multi-vendor RANs. Okay.
And then as we move down that path, then you would scale with, as we scale up, as we move into, obviously we're moving into 5G here. We'll go into further iterations of 5G, and you're going to follow down that path as well.
Absolutely. So we're a software-defined network, so it's all about software. It's not about hardware. So to us, 5G is just an app. I mean, that's just another software download, and it's 4G to 5G will be a seamless transition.
Okay. Good. All right. Last question. I think you and I have been on a panel before in the past, but this is a question I always ask for my panelists. It's always the last question, and it's pretty simple. What keeps you awake at night? It's easy to answer and say the kids, the dog, etc. But from a business point of view here, and obviously we've been talking about the RAN and evolution of mobile networks. But what is it that really worries you that if we don't address it as an industry, could come back in a few years and really bite us and hurt? That, boy, we should have done that then. What would you say to that?
2 words: slow adoption. I think it's really important for mobile network operators to try something different, to engage with the innovative companies who are opening up the RAN, and to get a trial going or a trial deployment or a POC, and to engage and to make it happen. Then it becomes a self-fulfilling autocatalytic reaction, and the RAN RAN will open up and you'll have more alternatives and options. So slow adoption is what worries me.
Okay. All right. Well, Steve, thank you very much. Everybody listening, this has been a 10 minutes with interview with Steve Libbey from Parallel Wireless up there in Nashua, New Hampshire, and he's the VP of Sales. So Steve, thanks very much.
My pleasure, Ian. Thanks so much.